from our studios in Caracas, Venezuela. I'm Carla Gonzalez. Let's begin. We begin in Brazil. A day after the elections, presidential candidate Fernando Haddad has visited former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva in prison to discuss how to approach the second round of voting. The Workers' Party candidate says he's optimistic that he will be able to beat far-right candidate Jair Bolsonaro despite the 17-point difference in the first round. The PT candidate says that during these 3 weeks, Brazilians will decide between the very different proposals presented by the two candidates.
We will have a very important opportunity to compare these two proposals so that the voter has an opportunity that, in my opinion, they did not have in the first round. So the opportunity is very important for us.
And Lula da Silva has encouraged Brazilians to support Haddad. Via Twitter, the former president made a call for volunteers to support him in the second round, scheduled for October 28. Our correspondent in Sao Paulo, Ignacio Lemos, has more.
So the first round of the elections is done, with 46% for Jair Bolsonaro, the far-right candidate, and 29% for the Workers' Party candidate Fernando Haddad. This is the new situation. We'll have a second round on October the 28th between the progressive forces and the ultra-right. Straight after the results, Fernando Haddad had announced that his campaign would start today. His first visit was to Lula da Silva in Curitiba. There he called on the different forces from the centre to the left to unite in defence of Brazilian democracy. The question is whether with this the PT will be able to turn around the results, because there is a strengthening of the conservative and even military sectors who are clearly opposed to democracy in Brazil, who defend the military dictatorship and who have won a significant number of seats in Congress. And there's also been a rise in hate crimes, homophobic and sexist attacks and so on. So we'll have to see if this call by the Workers' Party to defend democracy with social justice is enough. Last night, a teacher of capoeira in Bahia was murdered after saying that he had voted for Haddad by a group of Bolsonaro supporters. So this is the worrying situation we see now after the first round of the presidential election. One side calling for freer gun laws, the other calling for social programs and better access to education in the run-up to the 28th of October.
That was Ignacio Lemos from Brazil. So let's take a closer look at those results from the first round. The candidates needed over 50% of the votes to win the presidency. Bolsonaro only obtained 46%, while Haddad won 29% of the votes. As for the rest of the candidates, center-left candidate Ciro Gomes came in third with 12%, and right-wing candidates Geraldo Alckmin and Enrique Meireles won 4.7% and 1.2%, respectively. The Sao Paulo Stock Exchange surged more than 6% in early trading. News of Bolsonaro's unexpected large lead in the first round was welcomed by the markets. The rise was led by shares in state-controlled companies, which Bolsonaro has promised to privatize. Brazil's currency, the real, also climbed against the dollar. An indigenous woman in Brazil will take a seat in Congress for the first time. Lawyer Joênia Wapichana is the second indigenous person elected for the lower house. The first one was Mario Jurana back in 1982. Wapichana ran with the ecologist party Rede and will represent the Amazonian state of Roraima. The Brazilian Congress will also have a trans person as taking a seat for the first time. Erika Malunguinho is an Afro-trans woman who was elected for Sao Paulo. During her campaign with the PSOL, she said she would fight for an end to violence against LGBTI people and other minorities. Brazilian political scientist João Feres said Haddad has to reach out to voters outside his party to increase his chances of winning the presidential election run that will be in 3 weeks.
Well, I think he has to conquer voters from, outside his party electorate constituency. So he has to appeal to the center, the old formula of capturing the center. He really has to go for it and to, start conversations, negotiations with political forces to the right of PT. Because, the forces to the left of PT are already voting for him, so they have no choice. So he has to actually try to save Brazilian democracy from its greatest threat, which is Bolsonaro. It is true, PT is the largest party, but, Congress is a game of numbers, right? And comparing this Congress to the past ones, this one is much more conservative. And I think another reason for concern is the presence of the second largest party, which is Bolsonaro's party, made out of people who are very much focused on the agenda of security. They defend, arms for everybody, guns, for everybody as a solution for violence, for security, personal security. So it's pretty bad.
Now to Venezuela. This Monday in Caracas, President Nicolás Maduro participated in the 4th Congress of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, which was held together with the 3rd Congress of PSUV Youth. President Maduro spoke about the economic recovery process and the defeat against the coup attempts, which the country has been fighting. He also highlighted the importance of the work of young people in Venezuela in contributing to the political and social stability of the country.
And for some, it is a surprise after finding out how our people have managed to confront the barbarians, the wildest, the cruelest and criminal imperial onslaughts. How we managed to decipher the attacks which were aimed at the economy, at the minds of our people, to political life. Look at how we have withstood the criminal wars. We have endured 9 aggressive coups d'état, wherein by violence, twice, a criminal attempt to kill me. The revolution is now stronger than ever.
Tropical storm Michael was moved on Monday to Category 1 hurricane as it moved away from the Cuban territory to continue its course towards the Florida coast. The meteorological phenomenon caused sustained winds of 140 kilometers per hour and is now 100 kilometers from the westernmost point of the island. During its passage through Cuba, the Category 1 hurricane caused heavy rainfall and flooding, causing some material loss. Michael is 785 kilometers from Apalachicola, Florida, and will continue its route to the Gulf of Mexico. It's expected to become a Category 3 hurricane by Tuesday night. After Saturday's earthquake, thousands of Haitians are now living in tents. Citizens are staying outside of their damaged homes following Saturday's quake that killed at least 15 people and left more than 330 wounded. The numbers were confirmed in a civil protection report. Rescue agencies are trying to provide support to the victims, while President Jovenel Moïse has also promised to assist them. Heavy rains have battered Central American countries, killing at least 12 people. The torrential rains caused mudslides in Honduras, which killed 2 children and their mother. The rain destroyed houses and forced thousands to leave their homes. According to local authorities, 6 people were killed in Honduras and 7,000 were forced to evacuate. In El Salvador, the head of the country's civil protection agency said 2 people were killed and 10 others were injured. In Guatemala, the heavy rainfall has affected 8 departments caused by the overflow of the rivers and at least one person that disappeared. The National Coordinator for Disaster Relief has called on citizens to be alert and take precautions. Authorities say that a low-pressure system located in the Atlantic Ocean has strengthened and rain is expected to increase in the next hours. Rescue units continue to search for an 11-year-old child that was dragged away by the Petacalpa River in San Marcos. Coming up, more stories. Stay with us. Welcome back. A national strike continues in Costa Rica after Congress approved a series of controversial tax reforms last Friday. It's the fifth week of union-led strikes against the tax reform project that has driven by President Carlos Alvarado Quesada. One more round of votes is needed for its final approval. Let's go to our correspondent in San Jose, Fernando Francia, who has more.
Here we are in Justice Square, which is the headquarters of the judicial power. The protest has moved from the assembly to this square because the justice system is one of the institutions to be consulted about the tax reform. Protesters want the courts to reject this package of 4 laws that was approved by 35 against 22 votes last Friday. But the general strike will continue for an indefinite period after this first month. They will keep until this plan is rejected, and a roundtable with citizens and different productive sectors is called to produce a new tax reform that supports workers.
That was Fernando Francia from Costa Rica. We now go to Colombia, where another social leader has been murdered. Jaime Rivera was a human rights campaigner and member of the Coca substitution program in La Mina in the department of Cauca. He and his 2 sons were killed on Saturday. Rivera's death takes the number of community leaders murdered in Colombia to 474 since 2016. 27 leaders have been killed since President Iván Duque came to office 2 months ago. Also in Colombia, the country has registered a 14% increase in children dying of starvation. A report by the Ombudsman Office has rung the alarm, but organizations say the government is ignoring it. 162 children under 5 died of starvation and associated causes between January and September 2018, 21 more compared to the previous year. Organizations are urging the government to take measures. Bolivia is about to choose a new junior partner to help industrialize its lithium deposits. The country has already reached an agreement with a conglomerate of German companies to start exploiting one of the deposits. There are also Russian and Chinese firms interested. Bolivia is believed to have one of the largest lithium reserves in the world.
We've arrived to an agreement to make factories here, and that they take part of basic salts to Germany also. Clearly, with this, there will also be factories there, and perhaps there will also be competition there.
October 9 marks the 51st anniversary of the assassination of the revolutionary leader Ernesto Che Guevara. Progressive leaders in Latin America have already begun commemorating the date. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro celebrated Guevara's legacy, saying on Twitter, "Che's conviction for the construction of a decent and equal world continues to inspire new generations who fight against the interventionist actions of the U.S. empire." Bolivian President Evo Morales also celebrated Che Guevara via Twitter. Morales recalled that in 1967, Ernesto Che Guevara fought his last battle in Bolivia. He was captured and transferred to La Higuera, where he spent his last hours. We commemorate and appreciate your fight. Hasta la victoria siempre. Our correspondent in Bolivia, Freddy Morales, has more on this special date.
On October 8, the region of Valle Grande remembers Ernesto Che Guevara and his comrades. Many people are marching to the community of La Higuera, where Che Guevara was detained and executed by a Bolivian military officer 51 years ago. The little school where Che Guevara spent his last hours has been turned into a museum. A group of Cuban doctors are currently working in the region, keeping Che's legacy alive by providing medical assistance to the poorest sectors. The Villa Grande region is holding several events in memory of Che Guevara. In the area where his remains were found, the local government inaugurated a cultural center. In the city of La Paz, 2 events are planned for today, one in the presidential palace and another in Plaza Murillo.
2018 Nobel Peace Prize winner Nadia Murad says humanity and politics must go hand in hand. She made the appeal while speaking to the press in Washington. Back in 2014, Murad was held as a sex slave by Islamic State group militants, alongside 7,000 other women and girls. After escaping, she became the face of a global campaign to free Yazidi people. On Friday, she won the Nobel Peace Prize, and she calls for a more equal world.
Our humanity must be the basis of our politics and national interest. We should work together towards building a world that is fair, that is prosperous, and where every human is given the opportunity to live in dignity.
We'll take one last short break, but stay with us. Welcome back. Thousands of students and lecturers in Zambia are protesting police brutality after a female student was killed when police fired tear gas into her room. Vespers Shimusila, a fourth-year student at the University of Zambia, suffocated. Another student fractured her leg and spine after she jumped from the third floor of her hostel to escape a fire caused by a tear gas canister.
Time of the night. As a former student of that university, I know what university life is. I know that demonstrations have always been there. Even more than 30 years ago, when I left university, demonstrations were there, we found them, they will continue. It's the nature of universities.
And in Cameroon, opposition candidate Maurice Kamto is declaring victory in the presidential polls despite a government warning not to announce unofficial results. Kamto, in making the declaration, says he believes he achieved his goal in Sunday's vote. At a media conference, he also called on President Paul Biya to hand over power peacefully. Biya, who is 85, has ruled Cameroon for nearly 4 decades.
I call on the incumbent President of the Republic to organize the conditions for a peaceful transition of power in order to protect Cameroon from a post-electoral crisis that our country does not need.
And Madagascar's election race officially begins with 3 presidential hopefuls launching campaigns ahead of the November 7 polls. This follows months of political tensions. Former President Marc Ravalomanana is once again throwing his hat into the ring. Andry Rajoelina, the 2009 coup leader, is also contesting. Both men expressed confidence going in this election.
I really trust in our victory. You are the proof that Antananarivo is ours.
I am convinced that in a month and a half, we will start writing a new story for Madagascar.
Now to Palestine, where 11 Palestinian protesters were wounded by Israeli fire during a protest along the Gaza Strip, according to the Gaza Health Ministry. Protesters were marking the 12 years since Israel imposed a blockade on the Gaza Strip. Several boats joined the protest as those on land burned tires and threw stones over the border with Israel. Israeli forces responded with tear gas and live fire. Farmers in the Chinese city of Lishui in Zhejiang province are developing smart farms which allow vegetables to grow without soil. Plants are provided with all nutrient solutions through an intelligent control system. A shorter growing season and a ban on pesticides also make smart farms more environmentally friendly. China consumes a daily average of 9.7 ounces of vegetables, and farming methods need to adapt to a rapidly growing population.
The development of 3D agriculture by the Lishu Academy of Agricultural Sciences is mainly based on the geographical structure characteristics of Lishu, which consist of mountains and terraces. We employ the column to realize the planting patterns with less land and higher yields, that is 6 times that of ordinary farming. First, the farming period can be shortened with minimal labor and relatively high efficiency. Secondly, water, air, and fertilizer are applied to vegetables in perfect proportions, which make them keep a balanced nutrition. In addition, the pesticides are banned. Here, there is no pesticides.
Also in China, youth from the member states of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, are attending a week-long camping trip which begins in Beijing. The event marks the 15th anniversary of the strategic partnership between China and ASEAN. Many of the campers are journalism teachers and students who will be visiting universities. China and the ASEAN countries officially signed a joint declaration to upgrade their dialogue relationship to strategic partnership on October 8, 2003.
I expect for more better outcomes in the future, and we would, all the 10 Asian countries would be able to adapt to more of what China is trying to do, especially China, we all know it has been investing in a lot of countries, so we hope that in return that we could give out, give and take some between all those 10 countries in China, individual countries in China, so it will make a better friendship among the two countries or the 10 countries to China.
The Turkish government is seeking permission to search Saudi Arabia's consulate in Istanbul after a prominent Saudi journalist went missing there last week. This request was made after the foreign ministry summoned the Saudi ambassador for a second time over the disappearance of Jamal Khashoggi, who is believed to be dead by Turkish authorities.
We demand his immediate release if alive. If not, we would like to know what exactly happened to him and the details of what happened. And we demand from the international community to pressure Saudi Arabia and Mohammed bin Salman to tell us exactly what happened inside that consulate.
Citizens in Bulgaria are paying tribute to murdered journalist Victoria Marinova. The 30-year-old TV anchor was found raped and murdered in a park. She had reported on an investigation into alleged corruption by local politicians and businessmen involving European Union funds. Activists want to clarify the case and urge for justice to be served.
We have two demands. First, we want an independent international investigation on Victoria's murder and the corruption scandal GP-Gate. The second demand is the immediate resignation of the main prosecutor, Sotir Satsarov, and the mafia government of Boyko Borisov.
Two former Pakistan prime ministers and a prominent journalist have appeared in court on treason charges. The case centers around remarks made by former PM Nawaz Sharif during an interview with Dawn columnist Cyril Almeida in May. Sharif suggested that Pakistani militants were behind the 2008 Mumbai attacks. The matter has been adjourned to October 22.
I'm very disturbed over these proceedings against a very noble journalist and professional journalist, Cyril Almeida. This was his professional job. You can't kill the passenger. It is good the High Court has ordered to withdraw his name from the ECL. But the court should have also exempted him from appearing before the court. It reminds me of the days of martial law when journalists were tried under treason charges. Very sad reflection on the current political setup.
The death toll from Indonesia's earthquake and tsunami has reached nearly 2,000. Authorities say around 5,000 people are still missing, indicating that the death toll could still increase. In Palu, the worst-hit district, recovery operations have partially ceased. The 7.5 magnitude quake triggered a tsunami, devastating the island of Sulawesi. Egyptian midfielder Mohamed Salah and Senegalese striker Sadio Mane are competing for the 2018 Ballon d'Or. Both African players come from the English team, Liverpool. There's a list of 30 nominees awaiting for the decision on December 3rd. This award is given every year to the best football players in the season. Salah and Mane were the outstanding figures when their team achieved the runner-up place at the last European Champions League. Other European footballers with African roots are also competing, like N'Golo Kanté, Paul Pogba and Kylian Mbappé. French player Antoine Griezmann is the favorite to win. And with that, we come to the end of this news brief. But this and many other stories, you can find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. Here you can find all our latest information, our videos. You can search through countries and topics as well, so go check it out. And you can also follow us on social media. I'm Carla Gonzalez, and until the next time, thank you for watching Telesur, connecting the Global South.